Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and today we're talking dual RAM builds. This is the number one question I've been getting for like the last 3 or 4 months since the midway cores, things like Mortal Kombat started talking about potentially needing dual RAM. You guys ask about dual RAM more than anything else. I promised a build guide and a topic on whether or not you should do dual RAM in the first place, and that's what we're going to be doing today. Because right now there's not a ton on MiSTer FPGA that does require dual RAM, but we do have the work in progress Sega Saturn core that has a dual RAM build, and I do like to test dual RAM against single RAM, so at least for me it's very important to have both a single RAM build and a dual RAM build as well. Moving forward in 2024, we might find that more arcade cores are going to require dual RAM, not so much for a storage perspective, but from a bandwidth perspective. That's why currently on the Sega Saturn core, if you have a 4-chip RAM module, you're going to get worse results because of the way that the information is spread across the chips and the speed at which it's accessed. But any build is going to require at least the DE10 Nano board and a RAM chip, so that is what I'm showing you guys first. This is such a fun build. A lot of it's going to be the same from my analog build, but it does basically change a few fundamental things that I will go over in detail once they come up. But if you've never built a MiSTer before, whether you choose dual RAM and a digital I/O board or an analog I/O board when you see here, if you can put Legos together, you can build a MiSTer FPGA stack. Trust me, it's very easy. And big thanks to MiSTer Add-ons, he did sponsor this video, and this digital I/O board as well as this 3.0 128 megabyte RAM module I am giving away. So if you want to switch your analog build to a digital build, just leave a comment down below. Just say dual RAM in the comment and I will enter you in that contest. All I ask is you have a MiSTer to enter. Don't just try to win it to sell it. I want this to go to somebody who really wants to enjoy it and use it. I love giving things away on the channel, so big thanks to MiSTer Add-ons for helping me there. But for any build, of course, we're going to need the Terasic DE10 Nano board. This is the FPGA at the heart of any MiSTer build. It is such an incredible device, and for the cost, the value you get out of something like this is absolutely epic. If you've already watched my analog video guide on how to build a MiSTer, this is going to be a little bit repetitive, so you want to know more about the dual RAM, you can kind of pop ahead a little bit. But if you want to see another MiSTer build, definitely check this out. But right at the front here, you're going to see that Altera Cyclone V chip right there. That is going to be the brains of what everything is about MiSTer. It's an FPGA device with an ARM core on it. The first thing we need to do though is pop off this plastic shield. Whether you're building analog or digital dual RAM, you definitely don't want this piece of plastic here. You're not going to have any luck building your MiSTer otherwise. Just go ahead and unscrew those 4 screws and that plastic shield is going to pop right off. You can keep it around if you really want. I do for some strange reason, but honestly, the recycling bin is probably the best place for that to go. Now for the traditional 3-stack MiSTer device, you're going to get a little heatsink as well with a 3M sticker on the bottom. Do not remove that sticker until you're ready to stick this heatsink down. Trust me, if you put it in the wrong spot, you're going to ruin the adhesive and it's not going to stick again. You don't need to center this thing perfectly. If it's off by 1 millimeter, it's not going to ruin your build, but just try to get that heatsink about as directly over that Altera chip as you possibly can. You'll see mine's not perfectly straight. It's a little bit off to the side. That's not going to matter whatsoever. While this chip definitely does heat up, it is not a thermal monster, so you're really not going to have to worry about much. Push that down, it's never going to fall off again. Now if we take a look at the analog I/O board versus the digital, you're going to see that the analog port is obviously missing, and in its spot we have a DC barrel jack as well as a Toslink audio port. But either way, you're going to need RAM whatever you're building, and MiSTer Add-on sent this RAM module over, the one I'm giving away in the video today. Now as far as dual RAM builds are concerned, you can mix and match modules. They don't need to both be 128 megabytes, but if you're going through the process of building a dual RAM build, I highly recommend you do dual 128, so that way you're maxed out. You don't need to worry about anything in the future. But all of the RAM modules that come from MiSTer Add-ons are going to have this silk screen that says this size faces outwards. You do want to pay very close attention to that because the connectors are not keyed based upon Terasic's design. Now whether we're using an analog I/O board or a digital I/O board, they still line up the same way, but there is a crucial bit that you need to change for digital or dual RAM builds. This bank of 4 dip switches at the top, the furthest one to the right in this camera orientation with that connector here, needs to be flipped to the down or on position. If that is not flipped, it's not going to register that second 128 megabyte RAM module on your build. You're going to be on a single RAM stick even though you have 2 installed. If you need to rewind and pause it there to take a closer look, do that. Just make sure you know you have to have that. Now whether you're putting an analog I/O board on top or a digital I/O board on top, I want to tell you one thing. If the pins are not slotting into the female connectors easily, that means it's misaligned. This is not a time to go all Hulk strong on me and try to force them down in there. You will damage something. This is one of the easiest things ever, but I always have someone say they bent a pin because they forced it too much. Just make sure everything's aligned no matter what IO board you're putting on top. If you press down and things are not sliding into place, that means you're misaligned and you need to take a moment. Spin the entire MiSTer around, make sure all the pins are aligned. That way when you push down, you know you're not going to bend anything. And it's as simple as that. Go ahead and apply light pressure and you will see that the pins drop down, both the male and female connect, and you are good to go. If you're doing an analog build, the VGA port is going to be towards the barrel plug adapters, and if you're doing a digital build, the top barrel plug DC jack is going to point towards the other two DC jacks. It is as simple as that. And now you'll see we have an analog board on top. If you're doing digital, it's the same thing. Make sure you put the screws in so it stays where it needs to. Do a diamond pattern. This will apply even pressure on the pins no matter what IO board you're using. This is going to be the best methodology. If you're tightening anything in life, go back and forth diagonally. It's going to give you a much better fit with all of the connectors. And you'll see here on the analog that I did previously in a video, we have the exact fit we need. But we are using that IO spot that we're going to put the dual RAM on. But the next thing we need to do is go ahead and put the USB board on the bottom. Again, if you have not watched my previous video, this is going to be super important if you're doing a dual RAM build. If you've already built a MiSTer, watch my analog build guide, you can fast forward a bit and we can talk a little bit more about dual RAM. But you will see here we have this USB bridge. It's going to go from the MiSTer add-ons IO board, that USB hub at the bottom, to the DE10. This is what's going to allow it to carry the USB signals up to the DE10 board itself. I slot this in first because I find that there is enough room to be able to slot this board into the connectors, the male pins on the board. You can do it in reverse, whatever works for you. Just again, remember that this is a situation in which make sure you have your alignments correct. If anything is out of alignment and you start to apply pressure, you're just going to start to bend things. I don't want to make this sound scary. It is quite easy. On the MiSTer add-on boards, all of the machining and placement from the pick and place machines does a great job. I've never even had anything 1/10 of a millimeter off, so it just fits. But we do need to remove the standoffs on the DE10 Nano on the bottom, and with the USB hub you're going to get a new set of standoffs that we're going to pop back into the DE10 board. It's really easy, but again, when you're tightening these things up, don't go crazy strong. It should be finger tight in my opinion. Go ahead and put the female end of the standoff into the male threaded screw there and just tighten it until it stops turning. Don't strip these things out. You're not going to do a huge amount of damage if you go too tight. You're just going to make life a lot harder for yourself in the future. This is hand tighten only. That's as much as I ever do. And again, do it in that diamond pattern. Just seems to work the best for me. Now when we put the MiSTer add-ons USB hub on the bottom, you're going to go ahead and make sure that all 4 of those male screws are threaded through the holes, and then we're going to gently rock down the male headers onto that female connector for the USB bridge. Don't apply too much pressure. You might want to move your fingers left to right to be able to get a fit, but everything lines up perfectly. So just go ahead and press down gently until the USB header is inserted, and then we're good to go. Now we have to do the hardest thing in any MiSTer build, and that is put these little rubber feet on the bottom of the standoffs. MiSTer add-on, throw these in the box, that way your MiSTer doesn't slide around, and honestly this is the easiest thing. I am just clumsy and always have trouble with it. But don't forget guys, it is a rule in life. You definitely want to cover it before you have any playtime. MiSTer is no different. Make sure you cover it up. And that's basically all you need to do. Now on the RAM side of things, we're going to put the module in, and I always save this to last. On an analog, you're going to just put one in. On a digital, you put that second RAM module that I'm giving away in. Both of them say this side faces outwards. They are not keyed, so make sure you get this right, but you can put whatever module you want on whatever side you want if you're doing a dual 128 build, which is what I'm recommending. Just make sure you go ahead and slot that RAM in. Now while we're talking about RAM, let's talk about what dual RAM takes away. You don't get analog video out from the top of the IO board, but you can go direct video and get analog out of the HDMI port, so really you're not giving away much of anything whatsoever. What you're gaining in the future is it does seem like some arcade cores are going to start requiring dual RAM, so when you have that digital IO with dual RAM in there, you know in the future you're going to be able to play whatever comes to MiSTer, because the RAM's never going to expand beyond dual 128 megabyte modules. And don't forget I am giving away the digital IO board, the 128 megabyte RAM module, and this little DC barrel jack adapter. Just comment dual RAM down below with your comment. Now when you are doing a dual RAM build, the power is completely different. You're going to see that we have the standard barrel jacks here that you would have on an analog build, where we're going to put this DC barrel jack bridge over here, because the top DC 5V in is going to be our only power for the entire device, but now we have a power switch on the digital I/O board, which is really actually kind of convenient. This is the sync on green switch for analog. Over here, this is now going to be a power switch. Everything else is the same outside of getting that Toslink cable versus the VGA out. And of course you have room for a second RAM module over on the other side of the digital I/O board. But you'll see here we have a power switch inline on the MiSTer, and I actually love this. I will say that the switch in the cable for analog works totally fine, but I love this little switch coming out of the side of the case. It just 100% works for me compared to doing what we would on an analog build, which is having those two barrel jacks. It's not as elegant of a solution, but it definitely gets the job done. And again, if you're not going to be using analog video out of your MiSTer at all, then digital with dual RAM is the way to go, because it does seem like in 2024, instances of dual RAM being used are going to go up, especially on the arcade core side, so it might be time to go digital now if that VGA out is not that important, or maybe it's time to build a second MiSTer, because these things are fun and honestly I want one in every room. Now with the power adapter, all you do is plug it into the DC in on the digital I/O board, and then you hit the power switch compared to hitting it on the cord on the analog build. And that is everything that goes into building a dual RAM 128MB MiSTer. If you need the software setup guide, I'll leave a link below to the previous build guide I did, which does the software. But as far as whether or not you should do a dual RAM MiSTer build, that's kind of up to you. I think it's going to be really important in 2024. Maybe it's time to build a second MiSTer and have one for each room. But big thanks to MiSTer Add-ons for sponsoring this video and giving me that digital I/O board as well as the 128MB RAM module to give away to one of you. Someone's going to get a dual RAM MiSTer build as far as the I/O and RAM's concerned just by watching this video. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.